waiting for Pieter Hugo to join us. Here's he. Hi, Pieter.
Hey, Priska.
Good to see you. Hi.
How are you doing?
Fine, very good for the circumstances. I'm fine. Normally we would see in Paris now, right?
Yeah.
So we would. That's an issue at the moment.
It feels like another life.
Yeah. Where are you? You're in Cape Town or in the countryside?
No, in the countryside outside of Cape Town.
Yeah. Okay. And how many hours is this from Cape Town by car?
6 hours.
6 hours, so far?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how has the lockdown been for you so far? 7 months of being 6 hours away from Cape Town?
Yeah, I went back last month. I was back for a month, and it's actually very nice to be back there. And now there's this kind of second wave has started in South Africa, in the Western region that I'm in.
Yeah.
And I have my wife's family is staying with me at the moment. They're elderly. So we have to be super careful.
So that means you are on the countryside with your whole family, with your 2 kids, your wife, and with the parents of Tamsin?
Yeah, sort of. I'm here with my daughter, and my wife and our son is in Cape Town. She has got some just to finish. They're coming up in a few days. They're coming in a few days.
But you were for a long time. You were only on the countryside.
We were
and completely locked up.
Yeah, it's super isolated here.
Yeah. Incredible. I was thinking about this conversation today, and we wanted to speak about this ID magazine, about this article, about the photographs that you took from your children in this lockdown situation. And since I know you, we are now, I think we know each other since 2008 or something like that. But when we started to work together, your kids were very small kids. I think they were 2 and 3 years old. And I often met you in parts of the world, like in Paris or Cologne or New York, and you were always complaining that you don't spend enough time with your kids. And you were always like sad and feeling guilty, and I should be more home, but I'm traveling all the time. So, and then I was just thinking, it's normally mothers say this, so fathers are out there and being on safari doing something. And how was it for you to be with the children now for so close for this month?
Priska, it was in some ways really profound to get to spend so much time with them and to get to know them better. And at the same time, it was like incredibly challenging. It's like the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life.
Okay.
I think in 25 years, this is the longest I've been in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. I know that generally I spend about half the year out of the country.
Yeah.
But, it's quite a shock to my system. But at the same time, I had been wanting to take time out and spend time at home and not travel for work for ages. And I kept on not finding an excuse to do it. And then, COVID made that decision for me. And so I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more if there wasn't the threat of the plague hanging over.
Absolutely.
Over me. But at the same time, it's really given the space to connect with my immediate family and also to evaluate what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and whether I whether I want to continue doing it the way I've been working for the last, however many years, and hopefully one gets to bring these decisions that one made into your life after COVID. These resolutions that you don't just fall back into the kind of same pattern from before.
But this is something else what I'm always observing from you, that you are constantly in this discussion with yourself. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this the way that I should do? So it's like always this self-questioning, and to find your position. So and now you're with this series, you are trying to find your position together with your children. So I think it's very interesting to observe.
Yeah, I think it's something that's come over a few years, and it really started around the time that I had children. But it was just a decision to try and live life more consciously. Yeah. And I think by living more consciously, you also live more ethically in a way. And not morally, but ethically.
Of course.
I also think it's important to question and evaluate what you do all the time. It's the only way you grow and develop as a person and as an artist. And particularly the series of ID that commissioned me. It was something that I've been working on for many, many years. I've been working on it for 10 years already, 11 years on the series. But it was literally from one moment, having a few museum shows booked, a show in Poland, a show in The Hague, a show in the All, a show in Mexico City, to all got cancelled, and I was stuck in the countryside, not seeing anyone. I'm not by any means the only person in the world who's had this dilemma.
Absolutely.
But fortunately, ID approached me during that time and asked me if I would be interested in doing something for them, and it seemed like the obvious thing to do was to photograph my immediate family. Also, at the same time, during this period, we had this incredible turmoil in the US. We had the emergence of Black Lives Matter. And it just felt that this was a good time to focus on what's personal rather than something more global or in a kind of broader philosophical way. And
this is a project that you did together with your children, right? So it's not that you were photographing them, you developed it as well with them. How can I imagine this process?
It involved a lot of sweets. I explained to them a couple of things. I explained to them what it was for. I showed them examples of the magazine. I asked them if they were comfortable with me photographing them. I tried to be selective when I photographed them so that it didn't become an issue later on in life that they felt like I was constantly shoving a camera in their face. And I would often give them the space to say, okay, how would you like me to photograph you now? I said, make a couple of pictures for me, and now let's make some for you. And often their ideas turned out better than my ideas. And
And did they photograph you as well?
They tried.
They tried.
But,
will we see the result at one point?
I hope not.
Okay. So, but this, the pictures, they are in nature, they are in freedom, they are really wild, and it's incredible. It's really beautiful to see them, and as well, so this very serious eye that they sometimes have on approach, and on the other side, sometimes it's really funny. There is a humoristic thing as well in these photographs. Was it different for you to photograph your children than in comparison to the other series, like 1994, where you had not, other kids?
Yeah, it was. I just had to be a lot more careful, especially since there was a repeat. I'm hoping to continue photographing them. And I really didn't want to create a situation where they, feel exploited or taken advantage of, or where they feel enough with us now that it becomes an intrusion on their privacy and their sense of space. So I just I was very aware of these dynamics. I really didn't want it to become a power dynamic of. I wanted to avoid that at all costs.
How have you been as a kid in this age of your children? How was your circumstances?
I grew up during apartheid South Africa, and I grew up in really what retrospectively is not true, but at the time seemed like incredibly safe and entitled environment, where my parents, when I was my daughter's age, they never knew where we were. We would go out with a bicycle and we had to come back before it was dark, and that's impossible to even imagine today. Now, whether this was actually true that it was safer, or whether my parents were just ignorant of what was going on, or whether they were in complete denial, is is debatable. But I remember at that age having an incredible sense of freedom, but realizing very soon that it was at the cost of other people.
Okay. And but it was still apartheid. You did this fantastic book, 1994, with the kids in South Africa and Rwanda. And now you have this situation. How's the politics in South Africa at the moment? What is going on from this side?
Well, there's still very much a legacy of the previous president's corruption. And the corruption is so deeply embedded in the government structures that to try and it's almost like it's a cancer that's developed so far that if you cut the cancer out, the whole body will die. It's really difficult. And we went from being a very prosperous country, or fairly prosperous, to one being that's now financially and morally becoming incredibly bankrupt. And
okay, wow.
Tough choice, tough decisions have to be made.
And how is this Black Lives Matters movement reflecting?
Well, in many ways, the Black Lives movement actually started in South Africa. If you think of the statue in Charlottesburg in the US, that started before at the University of Cape Town with the statue of Cecil John Rhodes. So it's interesting to me to see, and I think because South Africa was such a racially divided society that had such a forced reckoning with its past, and such a public reckoning with its past, I think a lot of issues that we are dealing with or have dealt with, a lot of countries such as the US haven't really gotten there yet. So it's interesting to me to see this. We're not anywhere near having resolved them, but it's interesting to see how this is this is resonating in the rest of the world. For once, it feels we're actually a little bit ahead. Normally, I feel like we're always 2 years behind the rest of the world, but Yeah.
Yeah, but speaking about Cape Town, about art, about the art scene, there was many things going on there. No? There was the new museum that was opening, and a lot of galleries and a lot of artists. Everybody was speaking about African art. Is this come to a stop at the moment? Is there a pause in regard to this as well, or is there still a lot of things going on?
I think I always distrusted this. Oh, I don't know, not distrust, but I'm always very maybe cynical about this kind of push towards African art that you want to see. I think any artist wants to be taken serious for being an artist, not because of the geography or the history that they're born into. And of course, we have to. This is a facet of art practice and art history that's been ignored, and it needs to be acknowledged. And institutions and collectors have to catch up with this. So it's important to deal with it, but it must come from the right place. It mustn't come from because this is hip and collectible now. So I think one has to be very careful. And I mean, of course, this is something that I've benefited from. Is I've of course been on shows that have been geographically curated, and I've benefited from being from where I live in the world. And I think most artists are expedient in this way in some way or another. But either way, you know, there's good work coming out of South Africa. I can't really speak for the rest of Africa. And unfortunately, good work doesn't always come out of a happy place. You know? So if I think of places that's making really interesting work, Mexico, Colombia, these are problematic places, you know. It's what's feeding the quality of the work.
You did so many series already, and you were traveling so much, and you did a tremendous body of work. When was it? 2017. We had this exhibition. Uta is looking. Hi, Uta Rukam, from the curator from the Kunstmuseum Wolfsburg. She did this mid-career retrospective of Pieter Hugo, showing 16 of your series, and with 256 works. So this was really, really something. You just turned 40 in this year, and then last year you published the Mexico exhibition, La Cucaracha, which was shown in Cape Town, in Stevenson Gallery, in Yosemite Gallery in New York, and we have shown it last year in Cologne. In September was the opening, the time before Corona, when everybody was coming from all over the world. It was really fantastic. And now there was just this article published today in the Sitemarkets magazine about the series. Have you seen it already?
No, I haven't actually.
It's really great. It's really fantastic. No? I'm really happy about it. So speaking about what you have done, you wanted to have a sabbatical, but on the other side, you did a lot of things in these last years, and you're preparing a new project as well, and the Beastly Mirror, which will be published soon.
Yeah, I've actually put that on hold for a bit again.
Okay.
But I always have a few things on the go, always. And I don't think I'm ever capable of not working. So much of my identity is defined by the work that I make. And maybe for a large period of time it was very imbalanced towards that. And this is something that I've gotten out of this period of this kind of isolationist period, is to acknowledge and get in touch more with other facets of my person, of my being, you know, with it's being a father, a husband,
And yeah, but coming back to the series of photographs of your children, this is something which is really incredible as well. If you see the history of photography, there are a lot of photographers that are photographing their children, but they are always female photographers. So there are so many aspects in your yeah, being.
Well, the famous ones are female, but
The famous one.
Christopher Anderson
Okay.
just did a fantastic book called Pia.
Yeah.
I think of Eugene W. Smith, his photograph of his children walking into the light in the undergrowth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long tradition of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in many ways, it's probably the most honest work you can make. I mean, it's like people can tell me, you don't know anything about Mexico, you don't know anything about Rwanda, but you know what? I do know my family, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to let anyone tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
And so there's something that you can really own about that, but one has to be careful when making work around that. It's such a, you know, it's so ethereal. It's like the sensitivities, it's like spider webs. You can destroy it so easily if you're not careful.
There's one sentence in this article that really has yeah, catched me very much. I definitely realized I've used work as an excuse to avoid the emotional challenges of being present as a parent. Can you explain a little bit about this?
I mean, I think I feel very comfortable and confident in the way I was working.
Yeah.
And in less so in spaces where I was being faced with emotional challenges. And so I tended to avoid that, you know, to kind of the path of least resistance in many ways.
Yeah.
But
on the other hand, you are saying that at one point you were telling about that a good photograph is when both sides are showing something of themselves, so of their soul. That means that you have to show something and the person that is photographed, and that there is a connection, and then this really wonderful and great, like diamond photos. Your work is diamond. Somebody's saying here, how nice. By the way, if there from the people that are looking, any questions, please type them in this box. Then we can ask Pieter. Yeah, this moment of showing something from your own emotion. This is what you are describing often in the text about your photographs. What is it? What is happening there?
You know, when I photograph my children, for instance, they generally, I can assume a certain pose and a certain look on their face, because they know that that's what I like. In my photographs, people generally don't smile. There's a seriousness in the pictures. So there's an exchange that's happening. They're giving me something that I want. I'm giving them some sort of acknowledgement. Yeah, there's a dialogue that happens in portraiture that I find particularly, like, what's the word? Like, it's actually like kind of energizing in a way. There's an exchange, there's verbal, but it's also a non-verbal exchange that happens where age and social class and everything kind of, for a very brief moment, just gets broken down, and there's an incredibly strong communication that happens between yourself and the person being photographed. I take it very serious. I mean, I don't, to me, it's not okay, I want to quickly make a portrait of you. It's an event, you know, it's a significance to it. And and it's a long process. Huh? I was once
seeing how you are doing a photograph. You are constantly in exchange with the person who is photographed at that moment, and you are working a lot with the camera. You are not doing post-production. You are at the moment. You are in front of the camera. You're working a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I do the post-production, but and funny enough, I actually think I work quite fast. I find with portraits, generally right in the beginning of a shoot, there's an energy that is very hard to, there's an uncomfortableness and a tension that's very hard to recreate later on. The moment people start getting relaxed, it becomes a very different dynamic. Yeah, so...
Would you tell us a little bit about about your series? So you have this like 23 years of career now. What was for you the series that where you thought this is something where what really has changed your way of seeing the world?
No, all of them have in some way or another. It's really it's a continual process, and some projects I made in the past, I look back at now and they have a completely different reading than at the time I made them, which is great. There's a question here about how I gain trust of my subjects when photographing them. I generally find if you're just completely honest about what you're doing, people either agree or they don't agree to be photographed. I don't want to really photograph anyone who doesn't want to be. I don't want to make someone's portrait who doesn't want their portrait made. There's plenty of other interesting people in the world, and there's no need to kind of push people into that. So, yeah, I try. I mean, obviously sometimes there's language problems, but generally I work with someone local who can translate. Explain what the project is about, what my thoughts are, where this portrait would fit into a broader scope. And if people say yes, then I make the picture. If they say no, then I move on.
And in regard to the series 1994, where you had photographed a lot of children, so how did you start with this project? What was the starting point?
How long did I start? It was done over a few years, and I think as a photographer, you pose, or as an artist, you often pose yourself challenges or riddles, and you try and find solutions to them. And I wanted to photograph children without sentimentalizing them, and make the portraits incredibly arresting, so that the children had some sort of agency in the picture that stopped you as a viewer, that they were looking at you with equal footing in the film. And so then I set about, and then out of that developed a more theoretical structure. I gave myself certain confines. Okay, the pictures must be from South Africa. They must be made in Rwanda. This is the perimeter that I draw myself for the canvas that I'm working on. And yeah, and then with the kids, with that series, there was actually a lot of pictures that didn't make it. That was probably the series I worked on that had the least successful ratio of photographs to that made it to the final series. It was a lot. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, but anyway, if you compare this series with the series that you did now for ID magazine with your own children, it's quite a difference, huh?
I think there's some similarities. It's mainly photographed in nature. The portraits are confrontational. Some of my children were in the 1994 series. I think what I learned from 1994 or photographing children was that you have to work fast. You only get 1 or 2 frames, and then kids don't have the same attention span that adults do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely not ask them to recreate something.
Yeah.
They're not interested in that.
Yeah.
So there's a spontaneity in making portraits with kids, and an immediacy that that's unusual. That it's different when you're photographing adults.
I was just looking the other day. I was looking at the photographs by Anne Biermann. You know her? She's a German photographer from the 20s. And she did photographs of her children, which are, the children are very serious there in these photographs as well. Very concentrated, and you see their whole personality. You see, everything from them. It's like it's incredible. I have to show you the work from Anne Biermann. It's really great. And I was thinking about when I saw your pictures, I like very much to compare them with each other. Yeah, great.
Okay.
Peter, do you have any questions, Katja? Here is Katja around the corner.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, Katja. Hi.
Wow, yeah. So you talked a lot about the stuff that also interests me. Maybe one observation and one question. Like, what I like about the pictures of your children is that they also can play different roles. Like you see them in animals' costumes, which is quite typical for kids of that age to try out different roles. And they also got to know you maybe in different roles, not only as a photographer and a dad, and maybe also a friend playing with them, but also as a homeschooling teacher. I guess that was also a challenge. So maybe being photographed by their dad was not the most intense experience, but also being taught by their own parents. But what was the thing that maybe surprised you most in taking maybe more pictures of them than before, or something that you wouldn't have expected in your relationship or in this confrontation with the camera in between you?
I mean, Katja, it's hard to generalize because they're different ages, and the one is a boy and the one is a girl. And I'm surprised that my daughter completely understands it. She completely intuitively gets what's going on, and making a portrait of her is very much. I would say often I would ask her, "Okay, can we make a portrait now? I like that," and she'd say, "No, let's make one later." And my son, he is more like Sonic the Hedgehog. So I have to kind of just, okay, stop, let's just make and I get one picture and that's it, you know. My abiding memory of the lockdown period with homeschooling and making these pictures actually is that teachers don't get paid enough. That's a fact. Like teachers are, well, no matter where they are underpaid and they deserve better salaries. That's and I thought, you know, being an artist was a difficult job, but being a teacher is.
I imagine.
Your father was a teacher, no?
My dad was a teacher, yeah. Yeah. When I once visited him in a classroom, and when I was very little, like 6 or 7 years old, and at the first moment I was so disappointed because he was exactly like at home with his class. And I thought, like, oh, I expected to be him completely different, but he was quite the same. And later I understood how brilliant this is, that he was super authentic with them as with his own children. But yeah, teaching someone that you know very well something is always complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's a great body of work.
Thanks, guys. Okay.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much. And say hello to everybody, and Tamsin, of course. So, and Sophia and Jacob. And thank you for speaking with us. And
thank you, and thank you to all the people that had a look at this.
Yeah, and here's a question, the children photographer, so it's Anne Biermann, and the other one is Anneliese Kretschmer, but I will post an image of them now in our Instagram account. Thank you so much, Peter. It was really great, and hopefully we will see soon again.
Okay, ciao. Tschüss. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.